Hi, I'm Eric Grant with Sayrite. In today's tutorial video, we're going to show you how to make a contoured seat. This seat is for a four-wheeler. It can also be used for a motorcycle because the concepts are the same. The foam on this is damaged. We're going to show you how to repair that. We're going to show you how to shape the foam to get the shape that you need. Then we're going to show you how to pattern for the contour, and then how to sew up the vinyl and to staple it onto the form. So let's get started.
In this first chapter, we'll be removing the old cover.
This is a seat off a Yamaha ATV motorcycle. I don't know. I got it here. It's in really bad shape. This foam is actually starting to deteriorate. This is actually in pretty good shape here. Let's look at the structure of it before we take it apart. You may want to take pictures, but you always have the old cover. You can see here, this isn't a seam, but it is an extra panel. And this will be a seam here because there's a lot of shape built into this. So we're going to make a panel like that. You can see at the back here, there is a seam here. It's obviously not been sewn, but probably radio frequency welded. And then it's basically stapled around the perimeter on the back side. We're going to remove this cover, repair the foam. Even here, there's a piece that needs to be repaired, and make a new cover for it. So we're going to turn it over, and we're going to use a staple remover. This is one of them that Sayrite sells. It's probably my favorite. Let's do it at an angle that you can actually see how it works. So basically do that. Staple comes up. Nice way to remove staples. So we're going to do this all around the perimeter. The cover's staples are removed, and this is our foam piece, and it has been formed. You can tell that it's actually been put in a mold to be made because it fits into those cavities in the core here. But this is in very bad shape here. This is easy to repair. This is probably not necessary to repair, but this is in bad shape. Now, this is a very firm foam.
Coming up, we'll be creating a pattern to cut out our foam.
In doing this, we can basically use a 1-inch foam, and if we have to build it up, we can. Do this so you can see it. It's going to come right down here, all the way here. We marked a line here to indicate where the spot where we need to add foam. We're going to cut this out and add foam there too, but let's start with this one. I took some pattern material, and I'm just going to basically follow this line. It's not laying on there flat. I just want to get the general size of the piece that I need to cut to add to this. So right there. Now we need to go higher up here. I already know that the foam basically is a little small there, so I'm going to go outside this area here and come up here and go all the way up to there, and that should do it.
We're going to use that pattern to cut out our foam, and since it's 1-inch foam, we're just going to use a pair of scissors.
Some of this area is kind of old, and so I want to make sure that I have a good bonding surface for my glue, so I'm going to shave away some of that. I'm not really trying to form the foam. I'm just trying to remove any loose particles, and then we'll brush it off or vacuum it when we're done. We just want to get down to fibers that are not going to fall off. So this is the piece that we cut. It's really roughly shaped. Just have to make sure that it's going to fit everywhere, and it looks like it will. So I'm going to apply spray glue to this side and also this side, and we'll use our Cushion Right spray adhesive to do this. We're going to put it on both surfaces. Don't worry if you get some overspray on this part. It won't matter that much, but make sure you get a good coating on it. Now I'm trying not to glue it to the actual base. You could remove the base if you wanted to. Want to make sure both sides are tacky and that the solvents have evaporated out, and we are going to bond this to it to build the shape that we need. I'll just start down here. It's going to stick like gangbusters. So now we have a lot of foam shaping to do, but this should replace all that ugly damaged foam. So you can see we have some excess here. So, and I need to basically take off some of this. So I'm going to use this. I have to position it in a spot I can do this in, which is right over here. So sorry, cameraman. I'm just going to go around the foam piece doing this, or the base.
In this next chapter, we'll be shaping and repairing the foam.
So now we can use a shaper, or if it were too thick, we could use the hacksaw or electric kitchen knife. But doing that, you could cause problems. So unfortunately, I'm going to spend the time to make sure that I don't have any issues by using this. And this will take some time, and it is messy. So make sure you have a shop vac available. Let's just work on this one edge so you can kind of see how it works. We'll do this in double time, maybe triple time. You can see in all that time, it's really starting to come together. All we're going to do is to go around here and try to replicate what this was like before. It will take some time. We're not going to show all this, but you can see already it's starting to be matched up. We still have a little bit more work to do. We're going to do that all the way around here and all the way up to the top, and we'll show you what it's like when we're done. All right, I think I'm happy with this for the most part. Probably took 15-20 minutes to do this, to get it to the point where I like it. All you're doing is carving. You're trying to match this side with this side as best as possible. And here we have a little bit more foam than what they had, but I think that's going to work out great because they're going to repattern this. We're not going to use the old pattern. We still have to repair this, and we may have to shave off a little bit more here, but we'll do that here in a minute. So how do we do this? So let's cut a block of foam first to fit this area. So I've cut a block of foam that's bigger than the size of the hole that I have to cut out, and I'm just going to use a pin, and I'm going to mark where I need to basically cut into the foam. So I'm going to take some scissors, and I want to cut about 1 inch deep because that's the thickness of my foam. And I'm going to kind of go in here and kind of try to cut it out or rip it out with my fingers. It's probably a little bit easier. So we're going to test fit our piece. We want it to fit fairly snug, and we can always shave it down too. It looks like it's going to fit nicely. In this kind of scenario, I don't like to spray the glue everywhere, so I'm going to use this contact cement. I believe it's S18. A good contact cement works great for gluing foam sections together. Now you need this to dry almost completely before you bond the surfaces. That's what a contact cement does. So we're going to coat this and the block that we're going to put in with the contact cement on the sides and the bottom. Then after it dries, I'll show you how we put it together. It's dry to the touch. That's usually means that you can work with it, and we want to shove it in there as deep as it'll go, and then once it's totally cured, then we're going to sand it down to make sure that it's flush with everything, and it'll be a perfect repair. Nice. It's almost flush now. Now, one way we can protect the foam on the side to knock this down is to actually put any kind of tape on the real foam, because you can see I'm starting to damage the foam because I'm trying to grind this down to make it level. So this will actually protect it pretty well. So now what we can do is we can grind, or we can sand away the foam. Probably have to sand in the direction the tape's not on, and make it as level as possible without damaging the foam at the side. Nice. If you don't want to use a sew foam or anything like that for transitions like this, you need to make sure that this is a very thin transition from the new foam to the old foam. So you want something like this where you can almost start to see the old foam through it. Otherwise, these will show up in your final project. So smooth it down nice and thin for a feathered look.
Coming up, we'll be patterning for the new cover.
This is Super 77. It kind of sprays out like hairspray. This is Durascrim pattern material. You can use any kind of pattern material. We're just going to put a thin coating on this. And then actually I'm going to put a coating on the foam. First I'm going to pattern the top side here. To get this shape, we're going to have panels on the side and also a panel on the back. So I'm going to lightly go over this. It just makes it stick. And you do have a little bit of working time, but you don't have forever. So what you want to do is you want to start back here. This is where most of our shape is, and you want to work this out. It's not going to lay flat everywhere because of the contour. So get it in the general position. And small little wrinkles aren't a big deal, but it's best to get most of them out if you can, like that. Now, so if I push down on this, you can see what will happen. It doesn't work at all. So what you want to do to start patterning is you want to start cutting away your material. And I want to make a seam like this. And so right now I'm going to do it roughly by taking out a little bit of the fabric to allow it to relax. Now this isn't the final step here, but it will get better and better as we go. So you can actually cut some slits in here. You don't want to go past the point where your fabric will actually rest. And I think the fabric should rest about there. So what I'm going to do, this is going to come down and it's going to take the shape beautifully. I didn't put any spray glue there, but you can see that this is going to fit nicely. So this is actually pretty good there. If I take this and I start coming up here like this to take a nice rounded look, something that's pleasing to the eye but yet allows the fabric to relax. I'll go all the way to that corner and just keep going up. Okay. Now we have to do the same thing on the other side, but we want to get this side right, and we're going to actually fold it in half to do that side. So I'm going to put some glue here because we don't have any glue there. Okay, give it a few seconds and then start putting it down. If you've got major wrinkles, it means the fabric's not going to look good either. But that looks good there. We still have some wrinkles here. I'm going to peel this back a little bit, see if I can get this to go up now that we have a curve on that one side. Okay, it looks to me like I need to take out a little bit more because it's not going to relax there. So again, I'm going to try to make a gentle curve with my scissors. If it isn't gentle when I get it to the table, I can smooth it out. Okay. There, look at that. That's what I'm talking about. The fabric is starting to actually rest without many wrinkles. And we got some roughness here, but we'll smooth that out. So I'm actually pretty pleased with that. So now at the back right here, obviously we can't have the fabric do this because we'd have some major wrinkles like that unless you want to put a pleat in. So we're going to put a back panel back here. Cut away the excess, that's always easier. It's going to have to come away anyway. And then I'm going to take my marker. And you can already see a seam line on the old foam right here. I don't know if you can see that, but I'm basically just going to follow that. And we'll go over here to the side. I think I want to come up a little higher here. And then come down like that. And now we want to mark the middle, so I'm going to find the middle and put a mark here. Okay, so I've found the center, and I'm going to cut to the center line, and then I'm going to cut away this excess right on the line that we struck that is actually pretty nice and straight and has a gentle contoured curve like that. Again, we're going to fold this in half to mirror the other half. Not every seat is contoured perfectly. Now see how this is coming out like that? That's a bad thing. By cutting away the fabric, we discovered that we need to alter the pattern here. So we need to come down like this. So the more you cut away, the more you can see exactly how things have to be done. And we'll cut it all the way to the bottom edge even though there's excess fabric. Now look at that. Now that's pretty good. So the fabric, this panel will pull this in and actually come out pretty nicely there. So we have this part done here. So we marked the center here. We measured it and marked the center. And I'm going to cut away some of this up to that point just like we did on the other side. I'm going to go all the way to here even though we have to have extra fabric down here. We'll just add extra fabric there. I'm going to cut to here. Now look, this actually comes around here like this, and that's actually going to work well because the fabric's going to come over here, our seam will be over here, and it'll pull nicely on that corner. So I'm very pleased with that. But to remember that we need extra fabric, I'm just going to mark my pattern and say extra. Okay, at the top, we'd need it over here too. And just so that because this is on the line, we know that's the finished part here. I think, besides this, which we're going to smooth out, I think we'll come up here like this, just to kind of smooth it out. I can smooth it out actually off of the material as well, which I might just do. And as long as I'm close to this cut line, everything should come out nice. So this is the first pattern we're going to mark out, because that's very important to know what side is out. We do need some match-up marks. So I'm going to start here, very close to the end, and I'm going to put a mark like this, and I'll put a mark here, and a mark here. 3 marks should be okay, but I like to put one very close to the end here. And let's just call this A, and we'll call this B. Okay? So there we go. So I'm going to mark this bottom edge. We'll need extra fabric here, and I'm going to mark it extra as well, but I like to know where we're stopping. So in other words, an extra again. Okay, good. Before we can mirror this, let's mark on our foam or either our structure where the center is there. And let's do it over here because we're going to pull this off and mirror it, and we want to be able to put it back on again. So now we can take it off. So remember I talked about fairing up this curve to make it nice. That's all I'm doing, just staying really close to the line and fairing up the curve. I still have my match-up marks. Nice. Okay, so now it's time to mirror it. So what we want to do, this is the outside surface. We're going to actually use that adhesive to our advantage. It's still a little bit tacky. We're going to fold on this middle line here. And again, not all seats are symmetrical, so you need to check that. Then we're going to fold on this line here, and then we're going to crease it from line to line and basically make sure that it's nice and flat. Now, is ours perfectly symmetrical? Probably not, but we're going to be using an all-sport fabric, and that all-sport fabric is a four-way stretch, an extreme four-way stretch. So it's amazing what you can do with a four-way stretch like all-sport. And I highly recommend using all-sport for contoured projects like this four-wheeler seat or motorcycle seat. Okay, so now we have an exact match. I'm not going to cut on this line. We know we need extra here. I'm going to cut on this line here. I forgot about that. So we're going to go straight up to here. We were happy with this edge, and it looks nice and straight. Good. Now let's unfold it and inspect it. Yes, looks good. Looks really good. We're going to reapply a little bit of glue to get this to stick, especially on the edges, and a little bit on our foam again. We are going to put a silk film on this, so it doesn't matter about the glue being on there. Give it a few seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's good enough for me. And we're going to line it up on our center marks. There's our center mark there. Smooth it out and line it up on this center mark too. So we're going to reposition it and make sure that it's nice and flat, no bubbles. So I've cut a piece of the pattern material that's approximately the size, oversize, and we're going to now pattern for this side. So I've sprayed it, and we're going to put this on and make sure that we cover that side well. This one's going to be pretty easy because there's not much shape to it. Look at that. Bang, kaboomba. Now we're going to trace right on. I'm going to hold this kind of up so I can see it, and hopefully you can see it too. Right on the pattern underneath. If my marker will mark, yeah, there it goes. It's important to be right on that line. Now this is not pushed down. Yeah, there, it's fine. We're really close to it. Make sure it stays down. Sweet. Now this is B, so we're going to put a line there, and we're going to mark this B. There's a line here that's not labeled. There's a line here that's not labeled. And there's a line here called A. That way we won't get confused. This is out. Now, at the bottom, we're going to trace the bottom, but we know that we need extra there because we've got to pull around and staple. But at least we know where the bottom stops. So I'm going to put X and X there. Okay, up here at the top, we're going to continue straight up until this basically runs into each other, and we'll cut it there. Okay, so that side is done. Now, we can either trim it or we can just leave it there. I think I'm just going to leave it there. We want to do the same thing to this side, except for this side, we did not mark it. So here, I'm going to put a mark here. We're going to call this C, because the last one we used was B. A mark there, a mark there. These are just match-up marks, and one close to the edge. We're going to call this D, and then we're going to do the same thing here. Now, I'm looking at this back panel. Yeah, we'll be able to pull that out. I'm going to put a mark here. I think our last mark was D, A, B, C, D, E. I should know that. And a mark here, a mark here. This is our middle, so I'll just call it M right there. And E, F right here, close to this edge. Okay, so now we're going to put on another piece here in the same manner. Okay, we're going to trace right on our pattern material, and we're going to mark our match-up marks. Okay, so all I'm doing now is I'm just cutting it out, and we're going to make sure that everything fits perfectly before we proceed. Okay, so there we have it. This is now patterned. This is exactly how yours should look. Obviously your shape may be different, but that is as easy as it gets. Okay, so everything fits nicely. You can see the lines are right on top of each other. Now we do need to add seam allowance, which we're going to do on the fabric.
In this next chapter, we'll be cutting our fabric panels.
When reupholstering contoured seats like this, we recommend that you use a 4-way stretch, 360-degree fabric like All Sport that's available from Sailrite, because it's a lot easier to pull the fabric on and staple it. Now, you could use a standard 4-way stretch vinyl like Eversoft, but you'll find that the stapling process is probably about 50% harder, so it's your choice. So the outside surfaces here, we need to add extra here, and there's still a little bit of glue residue, so we can almost stick these down. Now, I don't recommend spraying the surface or spraying the patterns again, because you'll just get glue on your vinyl, unless you want to put it on the underside. Okay, so now here's the issue. You got to make sure you leave enough extra. We don't have to worry about which way does the vinyl stretch more than the other, because it's a 360 stretch, so it's pretty awesome. So you can position it any way you want. There is no real definitive pattern or anything, so we just want to get the best cloth usage. I think I'll put this here and put these the other direction. So let's put these all on, making sure we have plenty for anywhere it's marked extra, and I'll show you what's next. EX stands for extra. There's our line for the bottom. So I'm just going to cut a little bit outside of this, so we have plenty for that. Okay, and now we're going to go a little bit far here and chop this off so I can move it around. This is the side that we had it directly on. That's our seam. So we want to mark about a 1/2 inch outside of that, or you either just cut approximately 1/2 inch. Because this stuff stretches so well, I don't have to be really precise with my seam allowance. I just want to be approximately a 1/2 inch away from my pattern. So we're going to do this to all of the patterns, and we're also going to mark our match-up marks, which I'll do after I get this cut out. Make sure you go long here, following the general shape. Okay, so that's about a 1/2 inch. Now to do the match-up marks, you can either take your scissors and you can go directly across from the mark and put a little triangle, dink, dink, like that. And that actually works pretty well. Or you can use these notchers. They don't cut perfectly, but you'll always be able to tell where the match-up marks are. So see, it didn't cut the fabric out, but who cares? I can still see where they are. Like that. And then there's A. So in an effort not to get confused, I'm just going to leave that piece on the top, and then we're going to cut these other ones out in the same manner. On the main panel, outside surfaces are facing out. This is extra over here. We didn't put extra over here, so we didn't put a marking over here, so just make sure you leave extra here. Here, 1/2 inch added. Here, extra, extra, so probably cut here, 1/2 inch. And also at the back, 1/2 inch added. All of our patterns are cut out, and we're going to take the main body, and this is A over here. So where is A? A's here, and outside surfaces would face each other, so this goes on like this. So now we can remove the pattern, and we can remove this one because we're not going to get confused. If you do get confused, mark on the underside the letters, but that one's going to be matched up to this one.
Coming up, we'll be sewing our fabric panels together.
Now, a professional would not use double-sided tape. This is a 1/4 inch seam stick for canvas and upholstery, but it makes the job easy, and I'm really trying to teach people that aren't doing this 24 hours a day. So let's make your job easy. Put it very close to the raw edge, because you never want to see this through your needle holes. You're not really going to sew through this because our seam allowance is a 1/2 inch. So we're going to rip it here. Bam, like that. And now we're going to peel off the transfer paper. You could use staples as well, as long as you don't go into your seam allowance or over your seam allowance. But now we have a match-up mark here. You can kind of see them still with the double-sided tape. And we want those match-up marks to be on top of each other. So just match up the raw edges. This is your shape, like that. And then try to make sure the match-up marks are matching up. This doesn't have a lot of shape. Now, if a match-up mark's off, like this one's off by a good 1/8 of an inch or so, you can either shrink up the panel a little bit, or technically when you base things like this, things move a little bit when they have contour. So don't let that alarm you. I'm not going to worry about it. It's off still about 1/8 inch. I'm just going to match up the edges, making sure I'm not pulling on one panel more than the other. And if the matchup marks are slightly off, it's just because there's shape in that side. Not uncommon. See, this one's off too. There's the matchup mark there. It's still going to come out great, especially since we're using all sport. Okay, so we have it basted, and I'm going to take it to the machine and sew so it doesn't come apart at all, but it makes sewing super fast. I'm going to put my magnetic guide at the 1/2 inch mark on the needle plate, directly across from the needle. And since we have this all basted together, we're going to do a top stitch as well. We're going to just make sure the fabric's up against the edge. When I do my first stitch, I'm going to go back to lock the stitch in place with a V92 or Text 90 polyester thread, because this is application. I don't recommend nylon. Polyester will last longer. Now see here, we're coming up to shape. I hope you can see that. I'm going to try to push that out of the way. But because it's basted, man, I don't have to worry about anything besides just making sure that the fabric is a 1/2 inch away from that magnetic guide as we sew. When I get to the end, I'm going to do some reversing here, and that one's done. Now we're not going to do our top stitch till we get all the panels together. Now we're going to do the same thing to the other side, and basically this is exactly like we did the other one, so you don't need to see all this. We're going to sew it, and then we'll do the top stitch later. I am going to show the bottom edge after this one's on. Now we're putting double-sided tape at the bottom edge. So we want to start at the middle, and there's the match-up mark for the middle, and we want to baste either to the left or the right, and then come back and baste the other side in the same manner. Follow that edge. We could cut some relief notches in this, which is probably not a bad idea. Because this is a pretty good curve, I'm putting some relief notches in it. These are not match-up marks, but on the curve, you don't want to go deeper than your seam allowance, and that should allow you to take the fabric and follow that contour a little bit easier. One way you can do curves is you can actually raise the fabric off of the table, and it's a little bit easier to baste it that way because it is a shaped. There, that looks pretty good. And then we're going to start here and go this direction, doing the same thing. I'm going to go ahead and cut my reliefs in his. Now we're showing this with the Sayrite Fabricator sewing machine, but an ultra feed works great. In fact, a good heavy duty home machine will actually do this easily too. It's not too hard to sew this stuff together. So here we are at the back edge, basically the same principle, except for that curve is a little bit on the big side. Reverse a little bit here. And you'll just see how we do it. It's pretty easy because everything's basted. I don't have to worry about matching stuff up. Pretty simple. Just make sure it stays basted. There we are. We're going to remove the magnetic guide because we're going to do a top stitch now, and that means we need this seam allowance to go one direction or the other. I'm going to have it go down like this because I want my stitch in the back, not on the top, so that it doesn't receive as much abuse from the occupant that sits on the seat. Now I've installed the edge guide foot for the Fabricator sewing machine. You don't need it, but I want to show it off. It's pretty cool. This is on the left side. If it were on the right side, I'd just flip my assembly so that I could sew the way I want to. So it's going to sew in with my seam allowance over to the right. It'll sew right into the seam allowance, and all you do is keep this foot up against your first primary stitch here. So let's just start sewing. I'm not going to do any reversing because there's extra fabric on this, but you can see you don't have to think hardly about anything besides splaying out your fabric, especially at this curve. I'm still sewing a 5mm straight stitch. Anytime I do adjustments, I make sure my needle's buried. I pull left and right on the fabric and just make sure that if there's any wrinkles or bumps, that I smooth them out before I sew. Bury the needle. I got some bumps here, so I splay it out like that. The reason I have bumps is because I'm going around a really, well, sort of curvy curve. Now I'm to the straightaway. This is pretty easy. Make sure your seam allowance is going the right direction towards the throat of the sewing machine, to the right. You go pretty fast on the straightaway. All right, we're going to do this to all of the seams. I'll show you what we do on the sides since I didn't say what side we're going to sew with that one. For the sides, again, I'm going to put this top stitch in the side here rather than in where the occupant sits. Same process. This curve is a little bit wrinkly because if you look on the inside, you see the seam allowance is kind of bubbly. One way to resolve that is at the curve, is to cut relief notches all the way up to your stitch, but don't go into your top stitch. And this can actually help to relieve that. You can actually cut triangles out like that, and that's even better. I'm not sure I want to spend the energy doing that, but that will help. I'll do it a few times.
In this final chapter, we'll be installing the cover.
This is silk film. It's center folded, so in other words, there's 2 layers of it, but I'm not gonna unfold it because it doesn't have to be. So it's basically 2 layers over it. It'll just make it a lot easier to position everything. It's basically noiseless, and it also is a water barrier, but it definitely helps when you're pulling your vinyl on. So here's our vinyl, and it fits on like so, and we want to start at the back end here, back over here. All right, we want to use a 1/4 inch stainless steel staples, mainly because of the fact that this is a thin application and I don't want the staples to come through. Stainless steel will keep from rusting, and we do want to start from the back here. I'm doing it solo, so what I want to do is I want to make sure this is centered in the back nicely. Okay, so I'm going to put my one hand here, since I'm doing this by myself, and apply pressure so I can make sure that this seam is falling on the corner. And you can see my thumb is over here. Now, this is really where it would help if I had a second person here, and it is not uncommon to have to pull staples if things aren't in the exact spot you want them. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold my fabric here, because I know that's approximately where I want it, and I'm going to put a staple on the underside. And I know it's not tight right now, we're just trying to position things. And actually when I put my hand back on here, that doesn't look too bad actually. So I'm going to put another staple over here. And then one more over here. Okay, so now we can inspect it, and if we don't like anything, we can remove the staples and redo it, but I don't think that's too bad. So now, in an effort to get everything centered, I'm going to push down here, and I'm just going to put a temporary staple up here, making sure that these seams are falling right where I want it at the top. So from side to side, that's about right. Put my hand down here, pull a little bit, and I'm going to put 2 staples up over here. These are going to have to be removed. But that should keep everything nice and centered. Okay, seems a little weird. Now we're going to grab it here, but because basically we're putting staples here, here, and in the middle to position everything. And we're going to draw this down tight at the deepest part of the seat. So if I pull on both sides here, you can see we start to work out most of the wrinkles. I'm going to flip it over. I know approximately how much tension I need here. So I'm going to pull fairly tight here, and I'm going to put a staple right there. And then I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put my hand over here to try to work things out a little bit. See, like that. Pull the fabric taut here. And one staple may rip out if you pull too tight. Okay, that's coming along, good. I know it looks like a lot of wrinkles, but we're gonna work them out. So I think we have pretty good position for everything. I think everything looks uniform. We still have wrinkles, but we're gonna pull those out. I'm not unhappy with these staple placements, so I don't think I need to pull anything out. So let's do it so you can see. I'm gonna run my hand over here, work the wrinkles over to the side while I'm pulling on the fabric, and once I'm happy, I'm going to come over here so you can kind of see what's going on here. This 360 four-way stretch, or is it 380 four-way stretch, is pretty awesome stuff. Put one staple here because we need to make sure that we're happy before we do anything else, before we go crazy on it. We're going to do the same thing over here, working the wrinkles out and putting a staple on this side. Okay, my hands are tired from laying vinyl flooring the past 2 weeks. I like staples to go across horizontally, but hey, I'm tired. Okay, so that's looking pretty good there. Take a look at that. Getting tighter as we go. We can work out these wrinkles probably from the back side over here. Let's concentrate on this area. We want to go to the next area that needs the most help. So we're going to go over here, and I'm going to pull on this side. Work my hand to work out the wrinkles. I'm going to put a staple in the center area here, pulling taut. Right there. And then we're going to go to this side. We're going to do that same thing again. Pulling taut. And one here. Now inspect. Okay, so we still have a wrinkle here. We're going to pull this staple over here. Probably will need to be removed because I think it wants to go this way. So let's see if we can. Yeah, let's remove the staple here. So I'm going to use my staple remover tool. Pretty easy. And I'm going to pull more towards the center. Oh yeah, it's coming. This can actually be pulled up through here. When I pull this up here, we're going to remove those 3 staples there. This will probably work its way over there. We have a little wrinkle here, but there's no staple there. So again, doing this. So as you can see, it's basically a little game of trying to work everything out and staple securely around. And when we get to the end, when we're finally happy with everything, we're going to put staples really close together. Let's see if we can work this out over here. This is a little bit of a wrinkle. Yeah, if I do this with my hand, you can see that's going to come out pretty good too. Yep. This seems a little bit on the downside, but I don't think that matters much. Yeah, see how the seam's a little bit down? We could readjust that. I don't think I'm going to worry about it. Nice. So at the corner, we have a lot of bulk fabric, and I'm just, again, trying to position everything, but see how that pulls down nicely? If I do that, I'm going to be cutting. I'm sorry, I'm moving around a lot. But I'm basically applying a lot of pressure with my thumb here. And then we're going to do the same thing over here. I am very happy with it. I think we're ready to staple around the perimeter. We'll pull a little bit, a few things a little bit tighter as we go. So now that everything is positioned, basically just take your hands and pull in the corner. The stuff stretches like crazy. And you want to get staples fairly close to the edge, like that. And pull. And we are going to do this all around the perimeter. Every once in a while, stop and check to make sure that you're happy, and I am. And then we're going to cut away the excess. So we're going to do this all the way around the perimeter. A sharp turn, I'm going to just fold this down, and then I'm going to press fairly hard to go through those multiple layers. There we go.
Our seat is now complete and ready to be installed on our four-wheeler. If you have any questions, feel free to give us a call or email. We're glad to help. From all of us here at Sailrite, I'm Seth Grant. Thanks for watching.